you'll see the theme of this panel, right? These are young ladies who have broken into these professions which are not very easy to break into. So these are pioneers in this area. Raji Venkat is a soprano from the greater Atlanta area. She's a current master's student at the New England Conservatory of Music. Her stage performances include opera, concert works, Indian classical dance as well, and Carnatic music. Raji has performed in Shanghai, at the Confucius Institute, and at the Music Academy International in Trento, Italy. So she is not just an Atlanta soprano, she has performed all across the world. I'm going to introduce the next panelist now, Sonia Dara. Sonia broke into modeling at the young age of 15. So Sonia was signed by Elite Model Management. My God, that's like the best that you can get in modeling, right? So Elite Model Management. I actually remember seeing Sonia's Sports Illustrated issue where she was a swimsuit model. I remember being so proud at that moment going, wow, that's a woman who's broken another massive barrier for us. Shilpa Narayan. Shilpa, again, is an amazing woman. She's a songwriter, she's a singer, and she launched her music career by partnering with MySpace and released her first debut single, Renegade. And if you guys Google her, you can find her all over on YouTube, etc. And my God, this lady has more than 1 million followers. So her music has generated massive buzz on MTV, VH1, BBC Radio, Yahoo Music, MTV Indies, AOL Music, Vibe Magazine. I mean, I can keep going on and on and on. So I'm going to start with my first question. And Raji, I'd like to go first. Can you share a story from your life that was a turning point for you?
I remember when me and my brother, we loved piano, we loved music, and we're very artistic in that sense. He was practicing piano. He was doing Star Wars, and he was doing a Fur-Elise, da 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 da. And he was practicing that. And I remember trying. I was like 6 years old, or no, I think I was around 8. Anyway, so I came and I went to the piano and I tried to copy whatever he did. I tried to copy it. I wanted it. Whatever he had, I wanted it. That's how the younger sister works. So basically what happened was I started to play the Fur-Elise, but I didn't know the rest of it. And then there was this vacuum cleaner salesman coming to our door one day. And he just, he was supposed to be selling the Kirby 2000. And so at that time, it was the rage. Kirby 2000, the new vacuum cleaner. My parents were like, we got to get this. It looks so good and it works so well. And while they were writing the check for this vacuum cleaner salesman, this man actually taught me the rest of Fur-Elise and the rest of Star Wars. And I didn't learn it completely. But yeah, and it was crazy because he said he knew that song and he was teaching me, and at that time I was kind of like, oh my gosh, that's so cool, But for me it was such a normal thing.
The vacuum salesman who heard you on the piano and he stopped to teach you the rest of the song?
Yeah, it was crazy. And and at that time I didn't know any better. You're just like, okay, well, this uncle is trying to help me with something. It's so common. And now when I look back at it, I just think that I had so many points in my life that God was like, or some type of spiritual divinity or fate. They're like, music is it.
Do you own a Kirby 2000?
We still own the Kirby 2000. This is true.
There's a couple of big turning points, but one I think that was huge was probably in 2005 with my family. You can't tell because I'm sitting down on this call, but I'm 6 feet tall. I'm very tall. And we would, be walking around going, through the mall, North Point Mall, or, wherever, Kroger. And I always got asked if I, modeled, or if I played basketball, or if I played volleyball. And my reaction was always very, no, I suck at sports. Sorry. Like the idea of, throwing myself down on the floor for volleyball, or I tried basketball for 3 years. Mom supported me there and I was awful. Didn't score once. But modeling was kind of interesting, where I was like, I hadn't really ever considered it. more and more people had been, recommending it. And, ultimately it was this moment where, I had this conversation with my family and my parents, and my sister, and I was like, maybe this is something that I could actually, think about pursuing. And so we, kind of came to an agreement, as long as my studies didn't drop, and, I maintained my A's, we could get started on this. So it was like my dad and mom driving me to like a first, uh, talent school where they're teaching you how to, how to act and how to walk. And long story short, attended this competition where I ended up, competing. And the judges are actually agents. And that's when I signed with Elite Model Management in Atlanta and then New York. And that kind of was just this catalyst for everything that ended up, happening at age of 15. I had a lot of self-doubt, but mom and dad were definitely very supportive, and they're like, we're in this together. Let's try this out. It definitely was not, the norm. Especially as an extracurricular activity in high school. Most people don't, drive down after school to, Lenox Mall to do a fashion show after school on a Tuesday. But that was kind of we made it work. And so, yeah, that was a big turning point, because I think that helped me understand, time management. I was balancing school and work essentially as a 15-year-old. But I think that was a really big moment, and helped me also develop, a little bit more courage, more skills when it came to even like networking and what that entails. I started basically doing interviews with castings at the age of 15, and starting very young. So I would say that was a big turning point when mom and dad were like, yeah, let's do this. Let's take you to Orlando, Florida to this competition, and let's see what happens. And then it was just, I think, a mixture of luck, having the opportunities come our way, and we were ready for it and jumping on it. But yeah, I would say 2005 was a really, really big year for me, in figuring out, how modeling was going to fit into my life.
Shilpa, how about you?
I think for me, there's also a few different turning points, but I grew up listening to my mom singing, and I grew up being surrounded by music, and I knew I always loved music, but I never thought I would actually be a singer. Like, that never occurred to me. I didn't sing in choir. I wasn't involved in chorus in high school or anything like that. But I knew I wanted to be in music in some shape or form. And so I took this, I mean, it was very random, but there was this song called Apologize by One Republic. This was like my junior or senior year of college. And I had heard it before it actually released. It just kind of like got sent to me randomly. And I was like, wow, this song is so incredible. Like, if it becomes a #1 hit, I'm just going to get into music somehow. Like, I need to buy a guitar. I need to start singing. Like, I just want to do something. And so when it ended up becoming a #1 for like a very long period of time, I was like, all right, like I got to actually do something now. I need to buy a guitar. And so I bought a guitar thinking that I would be more of a guitarist. I didn't really know I could sing. And I was like, maybe I'll sing to accompany my guitar playing. And it turned out like I wasn't really that talented at guitar, but I realized I could kind of carry a tune. And so I put my first YouTube video up like almost more than 10 years ago now. And I didn't show my face. I was just so mortified at the fact of like being kind of public and trying to sing and showing people what my voice would sound like. So I just kind of did neck down, played the guitar, did a cover of Save Tonight from Eagle Eye Cherry, which was like a song in the 90s that I loved. And ended up, I mean, I wouldn't say it was viral. Now that I work at Google and YouTube, viral is like millions of hits. I hit like 100 or 200,000 views. And, for me, playing this song out of like my bathroom, sitting on the floor after taking a shower, not showing my face, it was like the kind of vote of confidence and encouragement I needed to realize like, okay, this is something I really want to do. And I want to pursue music. So that was probably the biggest turning point for me.
So Shilpa, what's interesting, you talk about, doing that video without showing your head, right? So when we were looking through your videos on YouTube, a couple of the ones that we thought we might play today, we didn't see your face. We didn't have your head. So we're like, I wonder if there's an issue with the video. So we can't play this. We need her face. So now I know the story behind it.
It was more just not having the self-confidence to really be out there like that.
I'm going to go back to Raji, and I want you to tell me a story from from when you were younger, and were you always good at singing? And what was that journey like?
So let me tell everyone about how I had to audition to college. So apparently there's a huge thing about how to audition, and I didn't know that. You're supposed to wear like a really nice, dress. You have a videographer and an accompanist, and you're supposed to take it like really clean and very nice audition videos. My mom was my videographer, and I was wearing a plaid shirt with a belt on. Oh my gosh, I still remember it's so cringy. And now that I'm in like the professional world, it's like looking at that, it's like I cannot have that in public, but I like to see where I came from. And and literally I think I learned these 2 songs in like just in like probably less than a month. And then I auditioned with it because I said, "Mom, I'm gonna do music. Like, I feel like there's nothing else I can go into. I'm gonna do music." And I auditioned like that, and no school, I kid you not, no school replied to me except maybe like 2 schools. And the one school that did reply to me, Augusta University, I went there and I auditioned for them in person this time. And they said I had potential. Now, potential's not, like great, but it's not terrible. It means I'm in, but we don't trust the I'm in part. And then later on when I went to Augusta, and if I didn't even decide to go to Augusta, I probably wouldn't have been here. Like, that's a really big thing when we were talking about turning points. Yeah, and so, I just went for it, and then I think my first role, this is the understudy role. So I had auditioned for this musical theater / operetta. It's called Into the Woods. And I had auditioned like everyone else. And you have, for each role, there's around 2 people that sing it for the Saturday night and the Sunday night. So there's 2 casts. And then they have understudy for both of those casts. So that's how it was. And then, my teachers, I didn't, I was the understudy to both of the understudies. So there's no way I would have been singing. Like, there's absolutely no way. So I was like, okay, fine, whatever.
So you were third in line.
Yeah, I wasn't even third in line. I was like, you have the first cover, you have the second cover, and then you have the 2 under. So I was basically the fourth or fifth person. Okay, and so this is completely impossible. And the part that I got only had 1 line in the whole show. All I had to do was ow, 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 ow. That's it. And that's it. And I make a stage. I was the ugly stepsister, Florinda. Yeah, so that was my first role. But how I got that role was actually because of these people who either fell sick or had a family emergency. So there was no one available for this part but me, the 5th person in line. And then after I performed, it was like, this is where I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be on the stage, and it changed my life forever.
What's helped you build up your confidence over time? So even when you didn't feel confident, how were you able to just show up?
Honestly, for me, it's really just been repetition more than anything. I think that's what really helped build my confidence in performing. I still get terrified to perform, and I still get really nervous, but I recognize that when I'm performing kind of more frequently, I kind of, don't have those same nerves, and I build up the confidence. And I think like that's really what helps me is the repetition. And then also like being surrounded by my family and having my family kind of give me some of that like good and bad feedback and understanding like what I can change for the next time. That also helps me build confidence.
Before I get into the confidence piece, I did want to mention one thing prior to what you said, Neeti, that, while all 3 of us have had, things work out for us, I do think there's something to be said about, we had opportunities present themselves to us and we were ready for it. And I think there's this sense of, practice, like what Shilpa's saying, and repetition, getting ready. So when those opportunities become available to you, you can snatch them. And I think there's still drive that is involved in working and like perfecting your craft, especially when it comes to music. I can imagine like that is such an important piece. But I do want to kind of emphasize to the audience that like we might have gotten like lucky and things worked out, but it was because I think there is still some level of, preparation involved. Opportunities show up in chances everywhere at any point. You never quite know. So as long as you, jump on them, but also, you can seek them out to some extent. So like from my modeling side, it was like, yeah, some people told me I could model, but it took, my parents and me like seeking out some opportunities, and then, meeting someone was a happenstance. And then that opened up so many doors. So that would be one thing I wanted to like iterate, that, being ready and keeping an eye out for those opportunities, and, whatever your passion is, if you're able to quickly apply it, really, really does help open more doors. In terms of your question around, confidence and helping, I agree with Shilpa. I think practice makes perfect. I think getting familiar with, your strengths and using them as, your superpower, I think in establishing what your superpowers are really important. So, people always ask what your weaknesses are, but I think it's just as important to focus on your strengths, practice them. Whether it's, in your day job, for me, it's, I'm a storyteller by, my actual job. So it's working on the marketing for our products. So practicing that, working with other, storytellers to learn, hone your craft. I think that helps build up your confidence in that what you're applying, what you're doing is actually at your top, and your best. You're always kind of helping present your best work.
We're surrounded by opportunities throughout our life, but the question is, are we ready to jump on those opportunities and take advantage of them? And I'm a very strong believer that whoever we are today, if we want to be something different in the future, we've got to start thinking about who that person is, who that individual is going to be, what the characteristics are. And then the more we focus on who we are becoming, somehow these opportunities come up then, and one day you wake up and you are that future person that you've dreamed about. What advice would you have for other women who are coming behind you, in terms of the support systems to look for, in terms of just words of wisdom, nuggets of wisdom that you would like to share with them, in terms of how they can pursue their dreams, no matter how non-traditional they may be? They may be traditional roles like doctor, lawyer, accountant, but if they want to do something different, how should they keep that fire burning for themselves?
My motto in life is just do it. I don't get out of bed. I don't have a routine that I like to do. I have to get out of bed because I have to do it. I have to just do it. I have to start the day. There's no other better force and push in life than just that internal, okay, let's get it done, let's get it started. But for the women behind me, as an Indian opera singer, I was feeling really alone in my community, number one, because I've always been the one brown kid at school. Now here, there is maybe 3 of us at the New England Conservatory. So, but I have found, a community of us, the South Asian classical representative, in the Western classical representative, and people who are doing that. Don't let the aunties and uncles, don't let yourself, bog you down. If you want to do it, if you feel like this is something that you have to do, even if it's just spontaneous, do it and just prove it to yourself, that you can do it. And then wherever the passion comes from, like you'll see once you just start it,
Sonia, how about you?
I can anchor it around a specific example. So when Sports Illustrated came, that was a whirlwind pivotal moment, I would also say. But I was in college at the time, went to New York for this casting, and was dumbfounded because I was like, I didn't ever consider myself that type of model. It was always like usually high fashion or runway. But they were like, we like your story, plus you're going to be the first South Asian featured in the magazine. And I was like, wow, that is a huge honor. But also, built up a little bit of pressure on myself. And I felt like, okay, there's this, whole world I can help open up, for other women behind me. And it was interesting, we got to shoot in Rajasthan, which was great. I had never been. It's where both of my parents' ancestors are from. So it was super special getting to go shoot back there. But there were some instances where it wasn't, they hadn't quite understood our cultural differences, or they didn't understand how to respect certain aspects of our, religion, culture, anything. So I kind of put my foot down on certain things where I was like, hey, we probably should not be having a photo shoot with like Ganesha statues next to us. Like, this is like not the most, kosher. In hopes that when they do select other women later on down the line and other Indian women that, or, South Asian women, that they won't have to face those kind of hurdles again. And that, you're helping educate others as well as you're going along. But, finding mentors where you can who look like you is super important. If you can't be what you can't see. So if there's no one ahead of you who's been leading that path, it's really hard. So if you, have someone who's behind you who, has asked for you to be a mentor, give some advice. Like, I'm all in about leaning in. And, if there's any roadblocks you can help remove out of the way for, the women following after you, I consider that, while my experience might not have been great, I do know though that the person after me will have a better experience, and that makes me feel like that was success. So I'd say, anchoring around that specific example, I still don't know if they've actually had I think they've had some mixed women who are like South Asian mixed with others, but I was like, until they get it right, like, I don't want to see another woman who isn't going to have that, respectful experience in that, type of magazine. So we've come a long way, I think, but I do think finding mentors, mentees, both directions, I think is incredibly important.
Shilpa, we'll end with you if you'll share your words of wisdom and nuggets with us.
The first thing is being as much of an expert in whatever it is that you want to do as you can. So doing the research, doing the practice, finding the mentors, really understanding people's journeys who have done it. I think that's really important, to just kind of understand what you can be by researching and practicing as much as you can. And then I think that the second thing, especially in these careers that, aren't quite as traditional, I think it's so important to really do it and believe in yourself while you do it. I think like my biggest struggle the first year when I really was in New York being a singer was all of the rejection I faced, and how many times people said like, you can't do it, or you're not Indian enough, or you're not American enough, and you're not the right, look for this type of singing. And, just the type of rejection you get daily is really, really difficult. And I think I wanted to quit because of that, like hourly. But I think at one point I was just like, I know that I want to be a singer, and I know that I want to at least try. I think the biggest regret I would have is looking back and not even giving it a try and not putting in all my effort for it. And so I kind of was forced to just believe in myself, because if you don't, nobody else will. It's really hard to convince people to believe in you and you don't show that yourself. So I think that's really important.
And I'm going to end with each of you using one word to talk about your favorite indulgence. I'll tell you mine. It's pizza. Go.
I'm a sucker for cheese and crackers and like a charcuterie plate. And whenever I go home to Atlanta, mom and dad are like, let me guess, you're going to go to the grocery store and create a cheese plate for us. I was like, yes, standard.
It's a Tamil plate. It's called idli. And you just have a little chili powder on it, and then you just eat it. And sometimes you can mix the yogurt in. Oh, it's so good.
Oh, yum.
To be very honest, I love a really nice glass of wine and listening to music before from like different genres and different parts of the world. I think that's something I just love zoning out and doing.
Thank you so much. I think one of these days when circumstances are better with COVID, we'll all meet. We'll have a nice glass of wine. We'll have some cheese and crackers, and we'll have some idli together. Does it sound like a plan?
That sounds awesome.
All right. Thank you, ladies. You guys were awesome.